Tansei, I'm Chris Nachkate. Welcome to APTN National News Daytime. Thank you for joining us. Two snowmobilers who went missing from a northern Manitoba First Nation earlier this week have been found deceased. 28-year-old Kyle Mason and 27-year-old Taryn Mason left their community of St. Teresa Point on a single snowmobile early Monday morning. 2 days later, Island Lake RCMP received a report that the Masons were missing and failed to return home after going out for a ride. Community members searched the First Nation and surrounding community, including the winter and ice roads. On Thursday afternoon, both snowmobilers were found deceased outside of the community. RCMP investigators determined that the snowmobile was traveling on the ice when it hit rocks near one of the nearby islands that resulted in considerable damage to the snowmobile and ejected both occupants. The cause of death is under investigation as RCMP await autopsy results. Their investigation continues this week. A 26-year-old man has been charged in connection with a recent death in Edmonton last November. The Edmonton Police Service is also asking for the public's help in identifying a person who was allegedly threatened by that man charged. Edmonton police arrested 26-year-old Keenan Antoine Singer Gladu on Tuesday for the death of 42-year-old Burton Lee Gambler. Police say they found Gambler with sharp force injuries just before 9 p.m. on Friday, November 21st in Edmonton's Chinatown near 97th Street and 107th Avenue. Police are now sharing this image with the public. It shows Gladu with a machete approaching a man in the area of the Joey Bell Tower at around 7 p.m. that same night. Investigators say they want to identify the witness, who is seen here wearing a puffy jacket with the hood up and light-colored pants. Anyone who can identify this man, you're asked to contact Edmonton Police. We are finding out more about the man who was evicted from Victoria Hospital in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan late last week. During that eviction, a passerby recorded the man lying down in the snow before he was escorted by hospital security to receive assistance and ensure his safety out of the cold. Here's an update. Sherry McLennan is the Western Region 2 Director of Métis Nation Saskatchewan and a close friend of the man who was evicted from Prince Albert's Victoria Hospital during the evening of Thursday, December 11th. McLennan says his name is Bryden Lefevre, and during that night she believes he was seeking help for his addictions or possibly shelter from the cold before he was kicked out of the emergency waiting room for being intoxicated and disruptive. According to McLennan, Lefevre was living with addictions, mental health issues, and a disability since he was a child. He grew up with a non-Indigenous foster family and was later adopted by a Métis family who raised him as their own. McLennan says Lefevre spiraled further into his addictions later in life after his father passed away just last year. Donna Brooks, the CEO of YWCA Prince Albert, says the incident shows gaps in service for people with mental health issues. In a written statement, Brooks said, "There needs to be a place where people can safely go. It's not always police cells, it's not always the emergency room. A complex needs shelter to be able to safely detain a person with medical supervision. We want to know what the police investigation is. We want to know what happened in this situation. And if the man was put in a precarious situation by the security guards, then they need to be held accountable for that." That shelter Brooks speaks of is expected to open in Prince Albert a few months from now. The Prince Albert Grand Council have since called for a meeting with the Saskatchewan Health Authority and the Garda World Security Company involved. A date for that meeting has yet to be set. And you can go to aptnnews.ca to read more about this story from our web reporter, Leanne Sanders. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Prime Minister Mark Carney and Ontario Premier Doug Ford signed an agreement on Thursday in Ottawa. It's aimed at speeding up the construction of major projects in Ontario. At a press conference Thursday morning, the two governments say the agreement could be used to cut red tape and speed up development in Northern Ontario's critical mineral-rich Ring of Fire. Proposed development of the area is controversial, with some First Nations in the vicinity who say they've not been properly consulted on the Ontario government's development plans. Premier Ford said his government plans to move ahead with infrastructure to the Ring of Fire development in the spring.
Before today, we've signed historic agreements with Arrowland First Nation, Martin Fall First Nation, Webequie First Nation, who are ready to build. Today's agreement is the last step in our plan to get shovels in the ground this June.
At the exact same time as Ford and Carney were putting pen to paper, Treaty 9 First Nations were holding a press conference in Toronto. This week, the Ontario Superior Court is being asked to quash a $96 billion lawsuit the First Nations have brought forward in opposition to Ottawa's Bill C-5 and Ontario's Bill 5. Here is some of what Treaty 9 lawyer Kate Kempton had to say.
This Crown government right here in this province and right up there in Ottawa today are making an announcement about taking over further use and occupation and governance unilaterally over Treaty 9 territory. Yes, they have some agreements with two First Nations, and I would put to you under duress, because this is what this Prime Minister and this Premier have done. They've imposed from 120 years of failed promises and fraudulent agreements a degree of colonialism that has driven people to despair and poverty.
The First Nation of Nacho-Nayakdan in north-central Yukon is raising the alarm about replacement work on a key component of a nearby dam. The territorial government says a spillway at the Mayo Dam, located on the First Nations traditional territory near the village of Mayo, has deteriorated beyond repair. It recently issued an inspector's direction to the dam's operator, Yukon Energy, ordering it to replace the spillway. Nacho-Nayakdan said in a press release earlier this week, the work should have started years ago and raised public safety concerns. It's calling on all Yukon Energy as well as the territorial and federal governments to ensure the replacement provides safe passage for fish, among other things. Yukon Energy said in a statement to APTN News, replacement planning is underway and there's no immediate risk to the village of Mayo. A Mi'kmaq chief is calling for an apology from Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston after police debunked the Premier's claims that unregulated cannabis is laced with fentanyl. APTN's Angel Moore with that story.
He should most definitely apologize. I don't know if he knows how to, but he should definitely apologize.
That's Tamara Young, the chief of the Pictou Landing Mi'kmaq Nation. She wants Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston to apologize after the Nova Scotia RCMP and the Halifax Police contradicted Houston's comments he made at a press conference last week.
I've talked to people in law enforcement have told me in this province that they've taken illegal cannabis from unregulated illegal dispensaries and tested it and found that it was laced with traces of fentanyl. So, you know, sometimes I hear, I don't buy from the government supply because I don't get the same buzz. Well, that's probably why.
Houston was defending the province's police directive to crack down on cannabis shops that operate outside provincial legislation, calling it a health issue. But in an email statement, Nova Scotia RCMP and the Halifax Regional Police, HRP, said based on the current information, the Nova Scotia RCMP is not aware of any fentanyl having been detected in cannabis products seized by the RCMP from illegal storefronts in the province. And no fentanyl has been found in any cannabis products seized by HRP from illegal storefronts. Young alleges the cannabis crackdown is really about Mi'kmaq sovereignty.
We know that he's been constantly attacking the Mi'kmaq, and now I feel like our concerns and what we were saying, they are now validated.
Young says at first she was angry at the provincial government's actions.
Just recently in the last week or so, it's brought Nova Scotians together we are now allies more so than ever, because we all understand that he is really hurting the public.
The Premier's office did not respond to APTN News' request for an interview by airtime. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabutuk, also called Halifax.
Quebec introduced Bill 1 last month. This bill proposes a constitution for Quebec. However, many have contested Bill 1, and it has even sparked a review from the United Nations to see if it infringes rights. Some First Nations leaders are also concerned over this potential constitution. That includes Kahnawake Grand Chief Cody Daibo. He says he shared his perspective when he met with two provincial parties running in the upcoming provincial election. This includes the Parti Québécois and Quebec Solidaire. The Grand Chief has also met with Minister Simon Jolin Barrett, who proposed Bill 1 this past October. The Grand Chief requested the minister to write in the law that First Nations will not be included. He says the meeting with the minister did not go well.
And in my meeting with Minister Barrett, he kind of made this whole, notion that there's the Quebec nation and then First Nations are underneath that, which we said, no, we're totally separate and distinct. So, like I said, that was one of the clashes of philosophies. Even myself, I had stated, they don't appreciate if I go in there saying, in my view, they're all Canadian. They're all part of Canada. So they're Canadian at the end of the day. He didn't like that as well. But I'm saying, like, reciprocally, then, if you're saying there's a Quebec nation, we're underneath it, that's the same impression that we're getting.
Senator Michelle Odette is up next to talk about the importance of including Indigenous youth in the discussion of this country. We'll be right back with that interview. Welcome back. Since 2016, the Standing Senate Committee on Indigenous Peoples have held an annual event for Indigenous youth called the Voices of Youth Indigenous Leaders. And just last October, a newly released report documented 8 youth from across the country who got to meet with senators to express their concerns last year. The gathering is a chance for Indigenous youth from across the country to meet in Ottawa and speak with senators about key issues like reconciliation and education. The 8 youth involved in last year's gathering were from Quebec, Ontario, Nova Scotia, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. And they got a chance to speak with senators about Indigenous youth priorities that included the importance of Indigenous identity, Indigenous languages and cultures, but also early childhood learning, education, and Indigenous representation with respect to land and sustainability. Their concerns were documented in this latest report, and senators say the youth's work will contribute to the committee's ongoing work on Parliament Hill. We recently spoke to Senator Michelle Odette and Métis youth participant Brianne Malitz. Here's that interview. Senator Odette and Brianne, thank you both for speaking with us. Senator, let's start with you. Can you briefly explain how this latest youth gathering last year in October went, and what were some of the concerns the youth shared with you?
Parfait. So we had 8 youth from across, we call it Canada or Turtle Island, and they came from places with experience, but of course they share with us the Indigenous identity, languages, culture, education and representation, and the relationship with the land was concerned, but also with filled of many hope, I would say.
Now to you, Brianne, how was your experience to be able to speak with the senators on a number of issues important to you?
It was honestly a really powerful experience. I still think about it all the time. Being in Ottawa in the Senate and speaking directly with senators as part of a committee process really made me feel like my voice was genuinely being taken seriously, and getting to also hear the other youth and their powerful stories. It's really stuck with me.
I had a chance to listen to some of the questions and appointments they stated, and it did get emotional at times. Senator Odette, as we said earlier, what the youth said is documented in this new report. Can you explain what will happen next with the youth's concerns that were communicated with the Senate?
One of the values that we have as Innu people, or I would say in general with Indigenous people, listening and hearing is very important. So it is also the mandate of any committee at the Senate. But knowing that we had the grassroots, the leaders coming from different places, now that we heard and listened, how can we implement to an amendment or a policy or a study that we will do, that we have now the voices and the message and recommendation from the youth, so we cannot say we didn't know about it, so we can add it to the work we do on a daily basis.
That's great to hear. Back to you, Brianne. Is public office and politics something you're considering in your future after taking part in this event? And do you have any words of advice to other youth who are interested in this event?
Funny enough, since participating last October, I've taken the LSAT, and I just began law school this past September in a combined program in Canadian common law and Indigenous legal orders. So I can definitely say that being part of that experience gave me a really big boost of confidence, and it was one of the final pushes that helped me take that step. But I'm not entirely sure where my path will lead me. But I can say for other youth, my advice would be not to underestimate the value of your voice. I shared it in my testimony, but I'll say it again, that Louis Riel was younger than I am today when he began the Red River Resistance. And one of the other youth testimonies also mentioned that we're not only the future, but we're also the present. So I'd really want other youth to know that you do not need to have everything figured out or fit a certain mold to belong in these spaces. And I know I certainly didn't. So I still just remind myself that lived experience is expertise, and we deserve to take up space.
And don't forget about us when you pass the bar, Brianne. We'll get you back on the show when you're a lawyer. Last words to Senator Odette. Can you explain how our country is so much more when we take the time to listen, including our Indigenous youth?
Well, the country is filled with many culture, different culture, but also the first people of this land. And when I say first people, there's differences also within the identity. And so for me, when we add this beauty or this expertise, we're also reminding this country we were there a long time ago and we are still here today. And believe me, we're here to stay. So let's do things together that will honor our ancestor and the people of today.
Tapway, well said. Senator Odette and Brianne will have to leave it there. Thank you both so much for your time, and happy holidays. We now want to tell you about this week's 3 web poll questions. Our first question is, has Canada made progress on reconciliation in the 10 years since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report? You can answer yes, no, or unsure. Next we ask, do you think governments act quickly enough when children are at risk? This is regarding our recent story on the issues of child welfare system in Nunavut. The options are yes, no, or unsure. And lastly, we want to know, are you spending more on Christmas this year than last year? You can answer yes, no, or about the same. Go to our website at aptnnews.ca to have your say. We'll post the results next week. Our 12 Days of Languages continues with an all-new segment. We'll be right back. Walalan for staying with us. Fredericton, showers in 12, Halifax, cloudy and 9. Cartwright, -10, La Grande River, -10 as well. 7 in Saguenay, Gaspé, 6. 1 in Peterborough, Toronto, -2. -15 in Wawa, clear skies and Sioux Lookout at -26. Churchill, -31. Thompson, -28. -22 in Princess Harbour, Brandon, -17. -1 in Regina, Saskatoon, -16. -21 in La Ronge, Stony Rapids, -37. Fort Chipewyan, -19, Peace River, -23. Calgary, -5, Edmonton, -20. -5 in Quesnel, Bella Coola, -6. -28 in Dease Lake, Sandspit, +1. minus 29 in Old Crow, minus 32 in Mayo. Wrigley, minus 24, Wati, minus 24. Tuktoyaktuk, minus 26, Paulatuk, minus 30. Minus 28 in Baker Lake, Cambridge Bay, clear skies and minus 33. And Arctic Bay, minus 25, Resolute, sunny and minus 27. It's time for our Christmas language segment. It's APTN National News version of the 12 Days of Christmas. And as of today, marks 2 more APTN workdays left until we are on holidays. We take you to north now for Gwich'in dialect from Agnes Mitchell and her apprentice, Jessie McLeod.
Yaishalakat, Agnes Mitchell Vilji. I am a Gwich'in from Gwich'in. I think of the words my grandmother would say, my didu. Taljuginhi means night of the midnight mass. After that, I hear Taljuginhi Gwindo. Taljuginhi Gwindo. Season of Christmas. Happy New Year would be Hai Aged Drin. Shaking hands, saying, Happy New Year. Ni le ono chi. Ni le ono chi. Jessie to say the Christmas greeting.
She's testing you now.
Okay.
Has tricky he jit at hike aged window. Sak shop ohly at guizi edik anotie.
That's during the Christmas and New Year season. Be happy and take care of yourselves.
It's really important to be learning the language not only for the transmission of knowledge, because our culture is inherently tied into our languages, but also to build those relationships. One of the things I've really noticed working with our language speakers is how much light and happiness comes to them when they're able to speak with a young person.
In our community, it was a big thing where people would all contribute cooking. They have the best was for that day, for Christmas Day. And I always remember people just being so happy. Even the snow was shining outside, glittering.
Thank you, Agnes and Jessie, for those great language lessons. And that's your daytime newscast for this Friday, December 19th. Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast in a few hours. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News Daytime, thank you so much for watching. I'm away starting next week, but we will have another host in the hot seat just for you. Have a great day and stay warm out there.